Well, hello, hello, hello. You are listening to No Brainers Empowering Possibilities Show. These are dialogues with fresh perspectives, invitations to ahas, a little bit of science, a dash of behavioral psychology, and applicable tools that you can use right now. So if leveling up is on your radar, my friend, you are at the right show. I'm your host, Roseanne Marsh. I'm the author of the teen and the parent empowerment curriculum called Level Up. And you are listening to episode number 42, Why Affirmations Don't Work. I had a discussion with several acquaintances a little while back. And in the discussion, the subject of affirmations came up. You know, the positive statements that we say to ourselves to help us through a challenge or overcome something that's self-sabotaging, or those negative thoughts that we have. So there were some laughs and some brushing aside, a practice that I myself prescribed to. So I asked about their experience with mindset and mental health habits. And the husband's response took me off guard. He said, "We are what we are. And why should we pretend by throwing out sentences that never come true?" Well, I could tell there was something there by his response. So I asked the question, "Have you had experience with affirmations?" He said, "Well, yes, I tried it once. I had a list on a paper and I read it at night before I went to bed and nothing happened. It didn't work." And then his wife piped in. She said, "I tried it too. I mean, it sounded like such a great thing to bring positive changes into our life." And she and her husband kind of looked at each other and she said, "I put them in my phone and I listened to them for about a week and then I forgot about them. And then honestly, it wasn't until recently that the recordings surfaced again." I kind of had a good laugh of the things I had written. So I was impressed. They had tried it. They had written them out. They had read them for about a week, but then they had forgotten about them. You see, they said they didn't work. They didn't work. Affirmations don't work. I said, "You're right. They certainly don't. But did anyone tell you the secret behind getting them to work?" The secret, he laughed. "There is a secret. The only secret is that affirmations don't work." To which I replied, "The secret is working the affirmations. But there's a twist that if it's applied, it's going to launch those affirmations into a way of being." And I offered to tell them more if and when they were interested. So the husband just shook his head and said, "It's a waste of time." But his wife leaned forward and she said, "I'm curious. I want to learn more." She ended up taking a course from me and is now teaching teens how to write their own affirmations. But there is a twist to it. There is a secret to it. But why don't affirmations work? There's lots of reasons that affirmations don't work. One is writing a list and then forgetting about it. Another is just reading it. And another is having affirmations that don't personally call to you. The beauty about the internet is that there's tons of examples of affirmations that may call to your particular life, your circumstances. But in just a minute, I'm going to give you some tips in writing an affirmation that will be customized to your life. What are affirmations and what can they do for you? Now, affirmations are those positive statements or even declarative statements that help brighten our outlook on the world. And when we say them to ourselves regularly and write them down in the journal, that uplifting language can actually help us deal with anxiety and depression. It can help increase our self-esteem, and it can improve our mindset and our ability to deal with day-to-day things. Now, good positive affirmations coupled with breath work can combat stress. And then they flood our body with those feel-good hormones. Now, who does not want more of those feel-good hormones? Positive thoughts create positive emotions, which can actually change the physiology of our body. And when that happens, you know what happens? It improves our health. And who doesn't want improved health? So if you're interested in good mental health habits, then this is an amazing place to start because it's easy to do, and it's free. And it can be effective when it's utilized correctly. So many affirmations are declarative statements of who we are or what our world can be or is going to be. You might say, well, wait just a second. Sentences cannot predict the future. But I'm going to agree and disagree, because perhaps we're not predicting the future, but we are creating and empowering possibilities when we choose what statements we want to fill our mind with. So what's an example of an affirmation? Well, affirming in a statement usually can start with two super powerful words. Those are I am. So using the words I am as a declarative statement of your identity. So anything we use after those two words is usually pretty powerful. Now, for those of you who are Christian, you know that the Bible talks about the God that says that he is I am. So that's actually his name. So when we use the words I am, we are actually invoking the God seed within us in those statements. Now think about how you use I am. The words we use are powerful and they create. And when we say them with emotion and with repetition, they create new neural pathways in our mind, and it's recorded in our conscious and our subconscious mind. And that is what is dictating who we are and how we respond. All those neural networks. Think about what is created when we say, I'm always tired, or I'll never understand this class. Think of it this way. If you had a magic wand and whenever you said something like, I am, it came true immediately. What are those things in your life that would be coming true immediately from that magic wand statement? So this is where affirmations come in, because they're the positive. They're what you do want to pull in your life. And maybe it's not exactly what you are or who you are right now. Maybe there are people that you know or mentors you have or those that you've read about in history that you think, I want to be more like that. I desire to be that. I desire to have that attribute or that skill. Well, when we write those affirmations, at first it may not feel like who you are. There might be a little bit of disconnect or a little discomfort, or you're like, oh, you know what? That's not really me. It doesn't feel genuine. But when we imagine in our mind, okay, a person that does have that attribute, maybe one of the affirmations you have is, I choose to be happy. And you know someone that's happy all the time. Maybe it's Glenda that lives down the street. Isn't she the good witch, right? She was happy all the time. What did she look like? What did her day look like? How did she act? How did she treat other people? When we can step into what that looked like, even if we've never been that attribute, we can start conjuring up, what does that feel like? Now I'm giving you the two secret things. It's that repetition, that you're going to use these consistently, but you're going to step into the feel of what it is to be. And when you can conjure up the feeling, there is incredible power in that. Now, let me give you some examples of some affirmations. Some could be like, I look for positive that surrounds me. I'm capable of achieving remarkable things. I'm worthy of feeling happy all day, every day. I'm resilient. I can handle this. I easily forgive myself and I forgive others. I crave and prepare high nutritional foods. My focus is sharp and distractions are behind me. Now, those are pretty powerful, right? So if you started out your day, every day, with your affirmations and went to bed at night with your affirmations, guess what? Your brain is prepared to look for those attributes in others. It's also preparing those neural pathways to change and become bigger, to circumvent those ones that we have already that aren't serving us. And yes, we do have those ones that don't serve us. I love what Brene Brown and Oprah Winfrey said. They said, if you want to kind of power pack an affirmation, then put gratitude in front of it. That becomes even more powerful. So let me give you a couple examples. You could say, thank you for sending me relationships that uplift and nurture. I'm grateful for my body and my mind that are healthy and strong. So see, an affirmation doesn't always have to start with an I am. It can say other things, but there are tons of different affirmations out there. What are the reasons for affirmations? Number one is, I've pretty much said it, words are powerful and they create. So when we come up with affirmations or specific words that we want to bring into our life, attributes, etc., we start creating those things in our life. But it's about consistency and about emotion, repetition, emotion, repetition, emotion, repetition, emotion. If I get that in there enough, maybe you'll remember that. Repetition, emotion. The second reason for affirmations, though, it's a target. It's a direction. It's an intention. It's a focus on what you want. Now, if we don't have a target, if we don't have a goal, if we don't have an aim, how do we know where to go? You know, in Alice in Wonderland, when Alice came to the Cheshire Cat, she said, which way do I go? And the Cheshire Cat said, well, it depends on where you want to go. She said, well, I don't know where I want to go. I said, then it doesn't matter which way you go. So if we want to go a certain way, if we want to end up being some of these attributes and virtues that we are placing in these intentions, and we need to have those in front of us. And we need to use those with repetition and emotion, bringing up that feeling. My friend told me about a time when she was in a school situation, and she and her peers were getting ready for the teacher to speak. And the teacher pulled her aside and said, hey, I need you to help me with this little scenario today. She said, in the middle of me speaking, I want you to jump up and I want you to berate me. And I want you to just rip on me and just say all sorts of crazy things. And at first, my friend was like, well, I can't do that. You're my teacher. Why would I do that? And she says, no, there's a point to this. So I want you to do that. So she's like, okay, I'll do my best to play my role today. So the teacher was teaching, and in the middle, all of a sudden, my friend got up and she's like, you know, this is ridiculous. You really don't even know what you're talking about. I don't even know how many years you've been teaching. You know, you're kind of a hypocrite. I don't even know if you live those things that you're talking about. And kind of went on and on. And everyone around her was like, what in the world is she doing? Holy cow. Somebody sit this girl down. And then all of a sudden, the teacher said, you know what? I appreciate the fact that you feel that you can express your feelings, but thank you, and you can sit down. So she did. So the teacher took a deep breath and she looked at everyone. She said, how many of you thought that was pretty harsh? Well, everyone was like super embarrassed because they were like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe we just experienced this. She goes, no, seriously, how many of you thought that was harsh? And a couple of them kind of raised their hand. She says, I want you to know I put her up to that. But yet, that is the way that we speak to ourselves on a continual basis. We are hard on ourselves. We berate ourselves. We compare ourselves. And we speak to ourselves, yet we will not speak to someone else that way. Why are we not treating ourselves with more love and compassion? It's as if we're our own fox in the hen house, so to speak. We're our own enemy behind our own lines. So how hard are we on ourselves? That kind of gives you an example of affirmations are kind of important because we are hard on ourselves and we need to combat. We need the prevention out there. That's the third way. Affirmations are the prevention against all the barrage that we're getting to protect us from the outside world, but especially from ourselves. There's another couple I know quite well, and they were going through a divorce. And the husband, when he asked for a divorce, he said to her, you don't fill my well. And this was a wife that from the outside was doing the best she could, But yet he felt like his well was not filled because of her. But the truth is, can we fill someone else's well? Can we give them self-esteem? Can we give them self-love? Can we give them self-worth? That self-concept is so crucial nowadays. Now, we can certainly be a cheerleader for others. We can certainly be a motivator for others. We can be a mentor. We can be an encourager. But unless we internalize our own self-concept, our own worth, and our love for ourselves, unless we allow it in, unless we put it in our subconscious, it doesn't matter what a spouse does, what a teacher does, what a friend does. We will still feel incomplete, unfulfilled, a well partially filled. Our well can be filled so many different ways, so many ways. The experiences we have, the talents we pursue, the service we give, the relationships we cultivate. But no one can force us to feel any particular way about ourselves. This is totally within our control, and it's totally our responsibility. No one's going to knock on the door, say, hey, here's your delivery, self-concept here. Sign right here for this package. Not going to happen. We are responsible for our own self-concept. Life involves dealing with other people. Unless you live in an isolated place, you're always going to be confronted with people, and you'll always have to deal with people, and you'll always have to interact with people. But that's a great thing, because we developed when we learn the social skills, when we learn the things that trigger us, and when we learn why it triggers us, because that's what we feel deep down in our subconscious. And those are experiences that are kind of knocking on the door saying, hey, pay attention to me. These are the things we need to work on. So that's a great place to start with your affirmations. So when we say an affirmation, I am patient, loving, and kind, what does that person look like to you? Maybe it means they don't blow up. Maybe it means they listen, and maybe they understand and ask questions. So that day, you have that one affirmation that you just really work on. Remember, it's repetition and emotion. And you're like, okay, I'm loving and kind and patient. And the kids come in and throw things all over the counter, and you're like, no, I am loving, kind, and patient. And in how you respond and how you greet them and how you love them, you're loving, kind, and patient. And you work on that. It's all about becoming, right? Listen, we are bombarded by negativity. The negativity to positivity that we're exposed to is just exponential. I'm not even sure where it ranks anymore, but it used to be 90% of what we were exposed to on TV was negative. But one of the most crazy things is that a lot of the negativity we bring onto ourselves. There truly is a deadly disease out there, and it starts with a C, and it isn't COVID. I call it compare-itis. And that's where we look at everyone else, whatever is happening out there, what they have, what they do, what they be, how they look, and we see our own deficits. And it's interesting that we do that to ourselves. I always say there's a 2-year-old inside of us. And how would you speak to that little 2-year-old? You know how impressionable 2-year-olds are. Would you yell at them? Would you berate them? Would you constantly tell them that they're not enough? Would you constantly tell them that you can't do that? You'll never arrive at that. That's too hard for you. You can't take on that project. You never would tell that 2-year-old, but yet we do that to ourselves. I know in parenting courses, they say, give 1 critical feedback to 10 positives. And then in the business world, I think it's called like the Oreo effect, where it's, a positive sandwich with a critical sandwich with a positive. So the little Oreo piece. But the reason behind this is because we as human beings, we're been attacked all the time. We feel defeated, but yet we have the capacity to bolster ourselves. As long as we're balancing out what's barraging us with the positive that we need to hear and have it directed towards the target of where we want to go. The only person we can compare ourselves to is ourselves. The only person to whom we can compare our results is to ourselves. Because if I'm concentrated on bettering my best, I'm not worried about the other guy's game. And I can certainly learn tips and tricks from them, what they're doing, and incorporate that in my style. But if my focus is on beating others instead of bettering my best, look at the energy that's there, the difference there is. One is outward focused, and I'm trying to feel my well from the outside. But if I'm bettering myself, I'm feeling my well from the internal. How we feel about ourselves inside and our ability to control our thoughts, words, emotions, and actions is going to be how we're going to be able to be successful in life. Affirmations are that mindset practice that attunes your brain to first remind you of how you want to act and then how you want to become. It's not about words that sound good that never come true if we do it right, right? This is all about becoming. This is all about being. This is all about feeling. This is all about desiring. It's not just saying the words, just reading them off and thinking that they'll come true. To the extent that you put yourself into this, to the extent that you feel those emotions and those affirmations, to the extent that you imagine and then walk as if you are, then you become. But if you don't have the affirmations, have no mantras, have no declarations, we have no commands, then there is no target, and there is no gain, and there is no well that is filled. I've had friends saying, oh yeah, I tried affirmations and it really didn't work. And then when I asked them when they did it and how they did it, and they said they wrote it on a paper, just like this couple, and it didn't come true. And it didn't change their life. Now, let's say you have a big, large cut on your arm, and then you realize that it's oozing out this yellow pus, and you know it's affected, even though you cleaned it a couple times and it's bandaged. As you look at it, the skin around it is all red, and you know that you need some antibiotics. So now I have my antibiotics. You have your antibiotics, and you take one. And then you forget. You get busy, and then you change the dressing, but you remember, oh my gosh, that's right, I got those pills. Then you take another one the next day, and then you forget, and then you go a couple days, and you're like, oh wow, this is really hurting. This is really bad. I forgot. And then you took 2 pills, and then you forget. And over a 3-week period, you end up taking all your pills, but you were supposed to take them in like 8 days. And you say, this was the worst antibiotic ever. It didn't even work. Well, truth of the matter is, you didn't use it the way it was supposed to be used, right? But listening to the story, when you say to that person, are you kidding? If you want that infection to go away, you got to use it right. You have to use it every day. You have to be consistent for it to be effective. That's kind of a no-brainer, right? Well, the influences of today are just as insidious as infection. There's so many things to be able to make you feel less than or distract you from becoming. You know, how do you have the audacity to do that? Why do you think you can do that? Why do you think you could be something? The voices are out there to disparage. Is that not an infection? And does that not need an antibiotic or a tincture of something to counteract the toxicity of it? Well, an affirmation is a type of counteraction. And when it's applied daily, consistently, in the way it's supposed to be used, with emotion and feeling, that's when it's powerful. Now you want to power punch this even more? Put this to music. On your commute to work, you're listening to this. You're speaking it out loud, because when you can voice it simultaneous and you've got this music, epic music behind you, it goes into the subconscious even deeper. Now, here's a couple tips for writing affirmations. Well, step number 1, start with I am. Starting with that affirmation, remember that's powerful because it's like declaring your identity. Doesn't have to start with I am. There's so many powerful affirmations that don't start that way. But you want to personalize this. You want to customize this. So write it in the present tense. It wouldn't be, I am going to become a vet. If you're always saying, I am going to become, you're always pushing it out to the future and you're never going to become. So I am the most tender, loving, intuitive vet. Those are the kinds of affirmations you'd write, present tense, as if it has already happened, because you want your body to step into it and act as if. Then write about things you want to change. Have your affirmations be about things you want to change. Remember, we talked about the triggers. What are some things that you're recognizing? Oh my gosh, I get angry every time. I am patient and loving every time my teenagers walk in the door. I am patient and loving every time my teenagers walk in the door. So write about things you want to change and make it short, make it realistic, but then add that feeling to the affirmation. So custom fit your affirmations, put it on your phone, put it on a piece of paper, put it where you can see it on a regular basis. The body doesn't know the difference between a real experience and an imagined experience. So when you bring up that feeling in your body, it's as if that body is already experiencing it. And we create our reality. So if your body is always feeling this, I am peaceful, I'm calmful every time my teenager's around, body is going, yeah, that's how we act. We step into becoming. For those who say affirmations don't work, you're right. Whether you think they will or think they won't, you're right. Isn't that what Henry Ford said? Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. But for those of you who understand the power of the neural system, the power of the reticular activating system, the power of the brain, the power of the subconscious, the power of the ego, the importance of feeding yourself these positives that can help you develop into something better, those character traits, those virtues, those attributes, so that when the reticular activating system recognizes things out there because you've been telling it what's important to you and you don't miss it, then you're going to be able to turn around and say, these are powerful. They work. And a lot of those affirmations I'm saying now are actually what I'm becoming. Come on now. We do not have time to just gather information and go, oh yeah, that would be nice to try someday. Start today. One declaration, one affirmation, or one mantra, whatever you want to call it, and say it to yourself multiple times. And then halfway during the day, when you can think about it, say it again. And then after work, and then at night before you go to bed, so that your brain can resonate with that. It can marinate in that mantra. But remember, repetition and emotion. Listen, there's enough in this world trying to counteract us that if we let the winds of the world just kind of blow us wherever it wants to take us, it's going to decide where we're going to go. So why don't we decide where we want to go and create affirmations that are customized for us, that can take us to only your imagination can imagine that high. For those of you who want a fun way of learning languaging skills, Rephraseology is a game that I developed that teaches 4 languaging skills. You learn how to rephrase it, define it, believe it, and flip it. One of these is an affirmation piece of this. This is for the whole family. Part of one side of the card is for ages 8 and up, and actually younger, and the other side is for teens and up. It's edutainment, fun, but yet you're learning these relanguaging skills. Remember, what we speak is what we become. As always, we're creators, and we have a choice to create. I hope you'll have fun with your affirmations this week. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.